pretty shocked, especially when we started hitting some of the smaller markets, Barrie, for example, like some of these smaller towns outside of, the GTA or Toronto, just how thriving, how alive, and how energetic the scenes actually are. And
the kids are all right, is what we're trying to say. The kids are all right. It's in good hands. Metal is in good shape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal to be sort of returning to, sort of the public eye. It's been a long time since the first record. The first record was 2013, and there was a lot of press and a lot of great reviews, and the reception was great. It's a record that we still stand behind and we're pretty proud of. But there's a lot of life events that occurred. Some of the usual life events. Some of us had kids. Obviously, the whole world experienced the pandemic. So for us, the pandemic was here in Ontario was sort of 2 years cessation of live music entirely. And then during that time, our original drummer, Matt, had, left cities to focus on family and stuff like that. So for us, the band, it was a 4-year absence between 2019 and 2023, thereabouts. And with good fortune, I was introduced to Aleks through a promoter friend here in the city. And when Aleks was introduced, we basically he and I sort of locked in a jam space for a couple of days, just sort of sussed each other out. And I said, okay, here's a couple of songs. Let's just try this one. And it was a great fit right from the beginning. So kind of, Alex's presence in the band kind of helped light a fire under my ass personally. And then I was able to rally the troops and get the band back together. And, then it was just a matter of sort of fast tracking the material that we had and get back to sort of polishing up some of the music we had in the chamber prior to COVID.
And I would say, if I can add to that, like before even we met, the mutual friend that connected us, he reached out to me and he said, hey, here's a band that's looking for a drummer. It hasn't been publicized. Also, my other band, Saren, that has not been publicized, that we have ended it. But this one mutual friend knew about both situations, and he sent me their old record. And I remember being at Good Life, putting it on, and just falling, like, I'm like, this is incredible stuff. It's like, it's got Mastodon vibes. It's got some Alice in Chains vibes. And if this is what they did 12 years ago, I'm excited to be a part of the new stuff. And then Andy started sending me, so first of all, I said yes, just based on hearing the old stuff. And then he started sending me the demos, and I was like, oh man, these sound like, even in the car, they sound powerful. And if this is where we are at the demo stage, sign me up. So it was just very fortuitous timing. I love the music. The work ethic was there, and we were just sort of coming out of COVID, and there was this like pent up energy.
Yeah, there was definitely a feeling of like the world reopening to live music, and then us sort of the stars sort of aligning.
Yeah.
Finding a like-minded musician who's also kind of a similar stage of life too. All of us were all sort of the same age and similar kind of priorities. None of us are really kind of madmen with crazy substance issues or anything like that. So we were also sort of socially aligned in terms of our priorities, and the commitment that we have to music is sort of a reflection of the professionalism that we sort of attack life with at this stage in our life too. I think I'll sort of expand on my experience at the time with the genre that we sort of dabble in, the multiple sort of genres that we dabble in. But at the time when PYRES kind of first jumped onto the scene, it seemed to be more of a disparate sort of collection of genres. Like we play a lot of very different shows, like noise rock shows and sludge metal shows, and we play with post metal bands and stuff like that. It was a pretty exciting time. It was a very eclectic time, and there's a lot of very dynamic promoters who were bringing all these bands together. To answer your question, I feel like in this comeback era of the band, there's a much wider swath of kind of stoner metal doom bands, and that scene seems to be really thriving. And of course, we have the riffs, and we've got the sort of the tuning, and there's there's bluesy elements to our guitars, and we kind of fit sort of into that scene a little bit, while sort of we have a bit more of an expansive sound. We pull in from different influences, so we're able to kind of slide around from different sort of shows and pair up with different bands. But yeah, absolutely, the sort of the southern stoner doom scene, especially with bands like Ox, as you mentioned, who are doing really well. They've got a new record on the way. That's that seems to be sort of a distillation effect, and there's a lot more bands in a sort of a healthy, thriving scene that's focused on that sort of genre. So it's an exciting time for sure.
It's, what I notice is the younger, and this is weird now as a 41-year-old talking about the younger generation, but it's true. I'm seeing people in their early 20s that are forming these loud bands, playing massive vintage amps, smashing big tubs of drums. You would think like the amp modeling would have taken over. You would think that everybody would be at home programming stuff on their laptops. And while that does obviously exist and thrive, there's almost been this like counterculture, and that's what we're seeing it. So it's so eye-opening and so encouraging to me to see younger people picking up vintage gear, playing loud, tuning low, having fun. People just like, yeah, the energy is definitely back. And so the pressure, me as a drummer, obviously drumming being an integral component, and the energy, the power, I'm competing with like 20-year-olds now, right? So, I'm taking my supplements in the morning. I'm keeping loose and limber, and I'm making sure my drums are set up exactly where I need them to be so I can reach them. And the whole thing is, us showing up with power, with the experience, with that stage presence, that we can sort of carry the tune, so to speak, with the younger bands, which are so much fun to play with.
Absolutely, yeah. There's definitely an energy. Like it's surprising. One of the observations that I made from sort of when we had left off to where we are now, sort of coming back with the new record, the new material, is like how much energy there is from the crowds and how many young kids are like dancing to this music again. Whereas like I had gotten very used to. I'm not going to rub the microphone here, but I got very used to sort of what we call the Toronto horseshoe, where there's just like a horseshoe of empty space in front of the bands, and everyone's kind of just, it's like dudes
too cool for school,
stroking their beards and just like sort of sussing you out, and not in a negative way, but it's been a lot more common for us now to see like moshing and stuff.
Oh my God.
Which is just like, it brings me back to being like a punk kid in the early 2000s, and just there was an expectation there that if you were playing fast and loud, the kids were just going to go nuts. So yeah, to sort of expand on what you're saying there, is just seeing the energy from sort of younger bands, both in their sort of the work ethic, as well as people who are promoting shows and really attacking that as like an effort to sort of expand the scene, and a community that I guess we're kind of uncertain about jumping back into. It's like, okay, well, I know that there's going to be the usual suspects who will listen to the band, but we were pretty shocked, especially when we started hitting some of the smaller markets. Barrie, for example, like some of these smaller towns outside of the GTA or Toronto, just how thriving, how alive, and how energetic the scenes actually are.
The kids are all right, is what we're trying to say. The kids are all right. It's in good hands. Metal is in good shape. Yeah.
I think one way of answering that question is the way that I would have processed trauma and processed grief as a 27-year-old was, especially with the events that occurred that sort of led to the finalizing of these songs, and me sort of marrying the personal experience in my life, my family's traumas, with the music that we make, is a certain comfort level in terms of like I am okay talking about these things in a very open and very public manner now. And with the time that it took to get this record out and get these songs out into the world, there's been a lot of time to sort of process some of these emotions. And so where I am at as a person with grief that I am dealing with, I have a bigger toolbox and more resources. I have a family of my own now, and I'm able to comfortably say the things I want to say in this art form. So to go back to sort of the 2013 era, the release of Year of Sleep was July 2013, but in April 2013 was when we got the call that my sister had been killed. And so there was the whole rollout of that record was kind of came to a grinding halt because of, I guess, as someone who, whether by default or by intention, can often sort of resume the role of sort of captain of the ship. I didn't have the tools at the time to steer that ship in any meaningful direction. So the band kind of continued on playing music and trying to write, although it was very directionless or rudderless, if we're going to use that metaphor. So I'm just better equipped now as an adult to have had this length of time to process some of these emotions and more comfortably address them in a healthy way. In this case, is through art, as well as I have the tools and the sort of the patience and the wherewithal now to kind of help steer the ship a little bit better. We just didn't know where to go as a band, and I wasn't equipped at the time to have the focus necessary to kind of push the band in any meaningful direction. I think it's definitely been received, very clearly by people who are listening to the record, and obviously some of the reviews and some of the things that we've read from other people who have taken in this music and have absorbed the idea. They understand the sort of the story behind it, the narrative. I think mission accomplished in the sense that some of the songs for me were like in the chamber as early as like 2014, 2015. The big 13-minute song on the record, A Depth Charge in a Dead Sea, I had that fully written in 2015. And one of the riskiest songs, as Aleks will know, I was very trepidatious about introducing it to the band, and I felt like I kind of had to ask their blessing a little bit, especially a new member like Aleks. I was like, hey, there's this piece of music. It doesn't sound like anything else we've done. And it's a very, very naked, vulnerable kind of song. That's Old Dogs. Not a lot of distortion, not a very heavy song. A lot of big expanses without lyrics. There's a wordless chorus. And I kind of felt like I had to kind of ask the blessing of the guys in the band. And thankfully, especially a newcomer like Aleks, he was like, you got to do it, man. Like this is a representation of you, and this is thankfully I think they actually like the song too. But there's a catharsis to getting it out and communicating to people in a way that I feel is healthy, and I think it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about these things, and sludge metal in general can be a bit fantastical. And personally, just where I'm at in life now, like I love all sorts of metal and heavy bands, but I just don't really care necessarily about like mythical hammers or whatever. I want to use the time that I have left with the people that I'm performing music with. I want to use the time that I have left on this earth, and really the only time I have, like where we're at in life, to devote to this kind of music is like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, I gotta be real with myself. I gotta be honest about the things that I want to say.
And like what I'll add to the question, Jasper, is there's an element of authenticity that people are reacting to, and I think it starts with Andy's vocal performance, which is like, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is a masterclass, because he executed so many different techniques and conveyed so many different emotions. I don't know if people know this, but the vocals were all done. I don't think there was anybody in the room with you. It was him by himself.
That's right. I probably logged about 50 hours just in the dark by myself in our studio.
So we're fortunate to even have this space, but then to outfit it with the gear, with the microphone, with him to capture these different performances and just take after take. He's his own biggest critic, obviously, right? As many singers are. But then to just deliver this gold that was, later like mixed and mastered, but essentially it was gold, right, with the harmonies as well. So I think that's resonating with these powerful and true lyrics, the vocal performance, the authenticity of it all. And then I think, like, for me, these slower songs, there's two of them, like these big sort of pieces that I do come more from that space of like, just give me heavy, pounding, depressing music. I was the first one to say, yeah, I'm on board on this. Like, crush it, man. Let's open this up. Let's slow down the BPM, and let's really lean into this more like a Doom, Paul Bearer sort of dirginess of it. So the feedback I've received so far, the album's been out, it's been a few days, is exactly that. People are resonating with just how deeply emotional it gets. It took him by surprise. They were expecting sort of straightforward, your typical blues scale riffage, of which we do have. Like, there's elements of that, but they were entirely taken by surprise by the weightiness of it all,
Yeah.
the emotional and just the expansiveness of the sound and the vocals.
That's right. A friend of mine who reviews records on his podcast and does interviews as well. He mentioned, he's like, you guys were a little cheeky in the rollout. Excuse me. And the rollout of the record, Granular Flow was kind of, we sort of collectively decided, like, let's let this be the first single. It's got all kind of the hallmarks of the band. It's also kind of the only song we have that's got like a big dumb chorus that you can sing along to. Oh. So it's like, let's get this out. Give them the BPMs, like give them the hot licks and the riffs and everything, so that like kind of pull them back in, sort of as a reintroduction to the band, and then let them experience the record as it's intended, with some of the surprises like A Depth Charge in the Dead Sea or Old Dogs, where and I appreciate the feedback on the vocals, but there were some tricks that I was able to teach myself, like in the space. There were just kind of a more transparent or honest representation of myself as like a person. I was able to say, okay, like what is my voice? I'm not just doing clean vocals because this is the clean vocal part. This song deserves this. This song needs this. And in the case of A Depth Charge in the Dead Sea, it was like the entire sort of the emotional journey from like softer ruminations to kind of a croon to like full on, So I wanted to sort of chart a path of all of the emotions and the stages of grief. And a 13-minute song allows you to sort of tackle all those sort of stages of grief. And it was definitely a journey. It was definitely like a very weird inward experience to just be sort of alone in the dark night after night. Our jam space is like down by the water, and it was like just a very eerie time. But I don't think I would have been able to achieve some of those things had I not sort of been just in my own weird feedback loop. So pretty happy with the results. I feel like the results are a very earnest or like honest achievement, I guess, for myself as like a musician.
That's a great question.
It's all on you, man.
Yeah, it's all on me. It's all on me. And I just had a kid too, right? So it's like, but I think the work ethic is really what it comes down to. And Andy's sort of he leads a lot of the, guys, where are we right now? Where are we on this song? Here's a new riff. Can we jam this? Can we work on this tonight? I think he comes with the plan. I show up being rehearsed, and I have a setup at home where I practice, right? And I think the main thing is just to not let off that momentum, because once we start going, that starting friction is the hardest, but we already have some riffs. I can't even sing them, but they're really good that he's brought into the space that we're starting to workshop. And this time, I think it's going to be a bit more, he's starting off, but we're leaving it open to Marc to start off. Dev has brought in some bass things.
This is very much like a clean slate this time. And I gotta hand it to Aleks, the energy that you've brought to the band. There's a workmanlike nature to Aleks. He's a professional guy. He's a new father. He's I think if Aleks is able to put any time into something, he wants it to be sort of, he wants to be able to hang his hat on it, right? And so, like, when we talk about momentum together as musicians, with the time that we do have together, there's a sort of a mutual respect. I'm not like, okay, Aleks, like, jam is next Tuesday, but we're just going to kind of just smoke weed and get wasted and play some Slayer riffs. Like, it's like, okay, well, what are we doing with our time here? I've got a riff, and that's actually, it's a good point. There's a lot of energy around the uncertain right now. There's this sort of uncharted waters where it's like, okay, we just put out this record. These songs are new to everybody else, but some of them are very old to me. So I feel that sort of cathartic relief of finally getting them out into the wild. But with the momentum of like just constantly being in and out of the recording studio and the jam space, and I mean, with the rollout of the record, doing a lot of these interviews, and just, there's a momentum here. We don't want to slow down this time. So kind of just meeting the moment is the mission, and respecting the audience, in terms of it's not going to be another 10 years before the next record. If I was to lay out a timeline, I would say I hope within 2 years we could have another full length this time.
Yeah, it's like the main thing I'm seeing right now is just the collaborative. Everybody's coming to the table with their ideas, right? And that's what's so exciting. I mean, I've got ideas of different gear I'm going to mount on my drums to get some different sounds, right? And explore tones that way, right? I think guys are constantly, I mean, it's an addiction, right, with gear. So they've got different pedals, different amps going in. You find inspiration from these things. So we're just coming into the room, once a week, and then we obviously have a group chat where we exchange ideas, share inspiration. Hey, check out this new album. We attend shows together, right? I think the band is just firing on all cylinders right now. I think we inside the band are excited. I think the audience, the listeners are feeling that same excitement. And like Andy was saying, we've been playing these songs, I would say, for the last 3 years, like kind of nonstop. I mean, just to film one video, I did the take like 10 times of like some, not all, right?
That's right.
So the thing is, it's like there's this like excitement for new stuff, and then eventually we'll start injecting some of these riffs and maybe some live sets. We might have a song roughed out. We might test it out,
sure.
Right?
At some point, you have to field test, And one of the things that, again, to go back to the release of this record, that's a relief is just sort of the feeling of pent up. Like, okay, I know we got these songs in the chamber. I know they're good. We had no idea that the production on the record was going to be as good as it is. So it's like, they sound more powerful and more cohesive, a collection of songs than I had imagined. I was like, I can be sort of a self-deprecating person sometimes to sort of send Aleks like demos. I'm like, yeah, this song's not the best one, but and it's, I guess there's a feedback loop, like getting enthusiastic feedback from the audience and being like, man, that song really like meant something to me, or like, holy shit, that rips. And seeing people sort of like help amplify it in the community and like sort of, hey, you guys got to check this out, like giving us a shout out. It just, we want to sort of reciprocate and like meet the moment. And I said this in another interview recently where it's like, it was a friend that had asked me, he's like, if you guys take another 10 years to put out a record, I will expire. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to squander the time that I have with a drummer like Aleks. Because good drummers are hard to come by. And what Aleks was able to do with these songs on this record, we just want to sort of keep that momentum going. Got a couple gigs in the chamber. There's some shows that are TBA, but we do have a few shows. There's going to be a cool show on a farm in Hamilton that's coming up in May.
At an airplane hangar.
And then we are playing, I'm going to announce this now, okay, so I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I've been very, very coy about this, but we are playing the Rune Mountain Doomfest, which is in Dunnville, Ontario, and it's on a Canadian Air Force base this year. So it's the second annual festival now. And man, Black Throne Productions, Fuzz and Buzz, the Tundra Wizard guys, they pulled together like a massive lineup. It's just kind of everybody who's anybody in the sort of the doom stoner sludge scene. And he's bringing in some talent from the US. So it's just like 1,000 times bigger and better than the first year. So that's definitely like a big event this summer for us.
And then we've talked about, like, even though everybody has, full-time jobs, we've discussed like, okay, what about a quick jaunt out east? Maybe we hit up like the Montreal, Sherbrooke, Ottawa, Quebec, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even further. Or what about into the States? Hopefully the tariffs don't affect us, right? But we go there. So there's definitely talk about planning that out. And I think there's an appetite for it. We're able to do it. Like, we have the vehicle, the means to get out there.
I tend to like to keep bandmates around that have their driver's license, because I don't. So like, congratulations, you're hired. Now you get to do all the driving.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're also like, again, at our age now, we're more like, okay, what are our capabilities? How big is our toolbox in terms of being able to sort of meet these moments and meet the demand? So for us, it's just more of a logistics issue. It's just like, the conversation is always open-ended, and whenever something comes down the pipeline, we talk about it earnestly and just see what we're able to do. Yeah. We're not able to do any world tours anytime soon, but the conversations around playing in Quebec or kind of anywhere in Southern Ontario, we're a lot more receptive to that now. We just have to figure out the logistics.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.